In a world obsessed with instant gratification and the appearance of success, it is incredibly easy to lose sight of what actual wealth looks like. We live in an era where social media feeds are flooded with images of rented supercars, massive mansions, and extravagant vacations. Society has conditioned us to believe that making a lot of money means spending a lot of money. However, if you look at one of the most successful investors in human history, Warren Buffett, you will see a reality that directly contradicts this modern narrative. True wealth is not about what you show to the world. It is about the freedom, security, and peace of mind that you build quietly over decades. To truly understand how to build a financial fortress, we must unlearn the toxic financial habits that society pushes on us. We are sold a dream of overnight success, secret trading algorithms, and rapid wealth generation. The reality is that the most reliable path to financial independence is incredibly boring, highly disciplined, and completely devoid of flashy tricks. Building generational wealth requires a fundamental shift in how you view money, time, and your own capabilities. It requires stepping away from the noise of the crowd and adopting a set of timeless principles that have survived every economic downturn, recession, and market crash of the last century. These principles are not reserved for Wall Street bankers or mathematical geniuses. They are practical, everyday choices that anyone can implement regardless of their current income level. Whether you are starting with $100 or $100,000, the mechanics of wealth creation remain exactly the same. The journey begins with mastering your daily habits and understanding that every dollar you earn is a seed that can either be consumed today or planted to grow a forest for your future. The foundation of lasting wealth begins with understanding the fundamental difference between price and value. Warren Buffett frequently teaches that price is simply the amount of money you hand over, whereas value is the actual benefit and utility you receive in return. This concept sounds elementary, yet it is the exact principle that most people fail to grasp. In the United States and around the globe, people are practically trained from childhood to be relentless consumers. The average person believes that reaching a certain income level automatically requires upgrading their entire lifestyle. This phenomenon is known as lifestyle creep. When people get a raise at work, their first instinct is often to finance a brand new car at an absurd interest rate, move into a larger apartment that costs twice as much to heat and cool, or fill their closets with designer clothing. They buy things they do not need, with money they do not actually have, simply to impress people they do not even know. They are focusing entirely on price and ignoring value. They are trading their future financial freedom for temporary social status. Contrast this with the lifestyle of one of the richest men on the planet. Buffett still lives in the exact same 5-bedroom house in Omaha, Nebraska, that he purchased back in 1958. He could easily afford to live in a sprawling compound in Beverly Hills or a massive penthouse in Manhattan. But he understands that a larger house would not bring him any more happiness or value. When he drives himself to the office every morning, he does not stop for a $50 artisanal breakfast at a luxury cafe. He stops at McDonald's. If the stock market is experiencing a downturn, he might opt for the 2 sausage patties which cost a few dollars. If he is feeling prosperous, he will splurge on the bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit. He pays in exact cash. The essential takeaway here is not that you must eat fast food every day or live like a miserable miser. The habit you must cultivate is intentional spending. Wealth is rarely determined by how large your salary is. It is almost entirely determined by the gap between your ego and your income. To start building this habit today, you must ruthlessly audit your financial life. Look at your bank statements from the last 90 days. Examine every single transaction and ask yourself if that purchase brought you measurable, long-lasting value, or if it was merely a fleeting hit of dopamine. Before you make your next significant purchase, institute a strict 48-hour rule. When you see an item you desire, force yourself to wait 2 full days before buying it. You will quickly discover that the vast majority of your desires are impulsive. By creating friction between your impulses and your wallet, you shift your mindset from being a passive consumer to being an active owner of your financial destiny. Moving beyond daily spending, we must address how you choose to grow your money. Over the past few years, the investing world has felt much more like a frantic casino than a rational financial market. We have witnessed obscure meme stocks skyrocket for no logical reason. Digital currencies minted overnight, generating massive hype, and artificial intelligence companies dominating the news cycle. It is incredibly easy to look at all of this chaos and feel a profound fear of missing out. You might hear a co-worker bragging about a speculative investment that doubled their money in a single week, and suddenly you feel an intense pressure to throw your hard-earned savings into an asset you do not even slightly comprehend. This is exactly how people lose their life savings. Buffett avoids this trap entirely through a powerful mental model known as the circle of competence. The underlying premise is wonderfully simple. You do not need to be a brilliant visionary who understands every single sector of the global economy. You simply need to clearly define the specific areas you actually understand and fiercely avoid everything outside of those boundaries. During the late 1990s, Wall Street analysts relentlessly criticized Buffett for refusing to buy technology stocks during the massive dot-com boom. Financial commentators called him old-fashioned, out of touch, and claimed he had lost his touch. But he firmly stood his ground. He refused to invest because he simply could not figure out how those internet companies were going to generate sustainable, long-term profits. When the bubble inevitably burst and wiped out trillions of dollars of wealth from eager retail investors, Buffett was sitting on a mountain of cash, completely unharmed. You can put this strategy into practice immediately. Take a blank piece of paper and physically draw a large circle. Inside that circle, write down the specific industries, products, and business models that you personally understand. Perhaps you work in the healthcare sector, so you have a deep understanding of medical supply chains and pharmaceutical companies. Perhaps you are a software engineer, so you know exactly which cloud computing platforms are actually valuable versus which ones are pure marketing hype. Perhaps you just pay close attention to consumer habits, so you know which retail brands command true customer loyalty. Invest strictly in what you know. If you cannot confidently explain how a company generates its profits in one simple sentence to a 10-year-old child, you have absolutely no business putting your money into that company. Ignore the flashy trends. Ignore the sensational headlines. Protect your capital by staying firmly inside your circle of competence. If you truly want to understand the architecture of massive wealth, you must understand the staggering mathematical reality of compound interest. There is a reason why the official biography of Warren Buffett is simply titled The Snowball. This title perfectly encapsulates his entire approach to building wealth over a lifetime. Imagine a small snowball resting at the very top of a long, incredibly steep, snow-covered hill. When you push that snowball and it begins to roll, it picks up a tiny bit of snow. But as it continues down the hill, it grows larger. As its surface area increases, it picks up more snow at an increasingly faster rate. By the time that snowball finally reaches the bottom of the mountain, it has transformed into a massive, unstoppable avalanche. This is exactly how compound interest works with your money. Your initial investment earns interest, And then that interest begins earning its own interest, creating an exponential curve of growth. Here is a statistical fact that should completely rewire how you view money and time. Over 90% of the massive net worth of Warren Buffett was accumulated after he celebrated his 65th birthday. Read that again and let it sink in. He did not achieve his ultimate billionaire status because he found a magical stock that went up 10,000% in a month. He achieved it because he started investing when he was just 11 years old, and he never stopped. He gave his money the maximum possible amount of time to compound. The absolute biggest hurdle you will face in your journey to wealth is human biology. Human beings are biologically wired to seek instant gratification. We want the maximum reward with the minimum amount of waiting. We want our portfolios to double by next Tuesday. But building generational wealth is inherently slow and unexciting. It is comparable to watching paint dry or watching a grand oak tree grow from a tiny acorn. You cannot plant an acorn in the soil on Monday and then scream at the dirt on Friday because you do not have a beautiful shade tree yet. Wealth requires extreme patience. Buffett often remarks that his favorite holding period for an investment is forever. To build this habit, you must completely alter your time horizon. Stop thinking about your finances in terms of days, weeks, or even months. You must train your brain to think in decades. For the vast majority of everyday people, constantly buying a low-cost S&P 500 index fund is the optimal strategy. This approach allows you to own a tiny fraction of the 500 largest and most successful companies in America. You must automate this process to remove human error and emotion from the equation. Whether you can afford to invest $50 a month or $5,000 a month, set up your banking so that the money is automatically transferred into your investment account the moment you get paid. If you do not see the money in your checking account, you cannot spend it. During the first few years, it will feel like you are making zero progress. The growth will look painfully slow. But if you relentlessly maintain this automated habit for 20 or 30 years, the math takes over. That boring, automated habit will inevitably transform into millions of dollars. Let the snowball roll and never interrupt the compounding process unnecessarily. Another cornerstone of this rational wealth strategy is the concept of a margin of safety. While amateur investors are constantly obsessing over how much money they can potentially make, professional investors obsess over how much money they can potentially lose. Buffett operates on two fundamental rules of investing. Rule number 1 is to never lose money. Rule number 2 is to never forget rule number 1. While it is impossible to avoid every single loss in life, the underlying philosophy is about intense risk management. A margin of safety simply means building a buffer into your financial life so that when things go wrong, you are not entirely wiped out. In the engineering world, if a bridge needs to hold a 10,000-pound truck, the engineers do not build the bridge to hold exactly 10,000 pounds. They build it to hold 30,000 pounds. That extra capacity is the margin of safety. It ensures the bridge will not collapse if a heavier truck accidentally drives onto it or if a massive storm hits. You must engineer your personal finances with the exact same mindset. The economy will experience recessions. Companies will lay off workers. Global pandemics can disrupt entire industries. Your car will inevitably break down, and your roof will eventually need repairs. If you are living exactly paycheck to paycheck, investing every spare cent into volatile assets, or drowning in high-interest consumer debt, you have zero margin of safety. A single unexpected medical bill or a temporary job loss can completely destroy your financial foundation and force you into a downward spiral of debt. Building your margin of safety starts with establishing a robust emergency fund. Before you start aggressively buying stocks or real estate, you must hold at least 3 to 6 months of vital living expenses in a secure, easily accessible, high-yield savings account. This money is not an investment designed to make you rich. It is financial insurance designed to keep you from becoming poor. It acts as an emotional shock absorber against the harsh realities of life. Furthermore, maintaining a margin of safety means aggressively eliminating any debt that carries a high interest rate, specifically credit card debt. It is mathematically impossible to build wealth if you are paying 20% interest to a credit card company while trying to earn 8% in the stock market. You are trying to fill a bucket that has a massive hole in the bottom. Plug the hole first, pay off the toxic debt, build your cash reserves, and only invest money that you will not realistically need for the next 5 to 10 years. Mastering your money also requires mastering your mind. The stock market is an incredibly emotional arena driven by two primal human instincts, which are fear and greed. When the economy is booming, people become excessively greedy. They believe the good times will last forever, and they blindly throw their money at terrible investments because everyone else is doing it. Conversely, when the market crashes and the news cycle is filled with doom and gloom, people become paralyzed by fear. They panic, sell their solid investments at massive losses simply to make the emotional pain stop. To combat this, Buffett utilizes an incredible mental framework introduced by his mentor, Benjamin Graham. They personify the stock market as a manic, depressive business partner named Mr. Market. Every single day, Mr. Market knocks on your door and offers to either buy your share of the business or sell you his share. On some days, Mr. Market is overwhelmingly optimistic and quotes absurdly high prices. On other days, he is deeply depressed and quotes shockingly low prices. The critical lesson is that Mr. Market is there to serve you, not to guide you. You do not have to accept his offers. When the rest of the world is panicking and driving prices down, that is not a signal for you to panic as well. It is a massive clearance sale. It is an opportunity to buy high-quality assets at a deep discount. As Buffett famously advises, you must strive to be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy only when others are fearful. Developing this emotional detachment is extremely difficult, but absolutely necessary. You must actively train yourself to ignore the daily financial news. The media makes money by generating anxiety and keeping your eyes glued to the screen. They will highlight every minor dip in the market as the beginning of the next Great Depression. If you constantly check your portfolio balance every single day, you will drive yourself insane and eventually make a terrible, emotionally driven decision. A wealthy mindset requires treating your investments like real estate. If you buy a house to live in for the next 20 years, you do not check the exact value of that house every morning when you wake up. You do not panic and sell your house just because a real estate agent tells you it dropped in value by 2% on a random Tuesday. You live your life and let the asset appreciate over time. Treat your index funds and long-term investments with the exact same level of indifference. Beyond financial mechanics, there is a habit that separates the moderately successful from the legendary. It is the habit of relentless, lifelong learning. The absolute greatest investment you will ever make in your entire lifetime is not in commercial real estate, and it is not in a diversified portfolio of stocks. The greatest investment you can ever make is in your own mind. When people ask how to achieve incredible success, they usually expect a complicated mathematical formula or a secret networking strategy. But when Buffett was asked about his primary key to success, he simply pointed to a massive stack of financial reports and stated that a person should read 500 pages just like that every single day. He explained that knowledge works exactly like compound interest. It builds up slowly over time, creating a massive intellectual advantage. Buffett and his late business partner, Charlie Munger, were essentially professional reading machines. They structured their lives so they could spend up to 80% of their working day just sitting in a quiet room, reading and thinking critically. Now we must be practical. You likely work a demanding full-time job, manage a household, take care of children, and deal with the exhausting realities of modern life. You absolutely do not have the time or the energy to sit down and read 500 pages a day. And that is perfectly fine. The literal page count is completely irrelevant. The true essence of this habit is cultivating a state of relentless curiosity. Take a critical look at the information diet of the average person today. We spend countless hours mindlessly doom scrolling through social media platforms, consuming digital junk food that rots our attention spans. We watch strangers arguing about politics. We look at heavily edited photographs depicting unrealistic lifestyles, and we fill our brains with trivial entertainment. This behavior consumes massive amounts of time and yields absolutely zero positive return on investment. Wealthy individuals curate their information diet just as strictly and carefully as an elite athlete curates their physical nutrition. They actively seek out biographies of people who have overcome massive obstacles. They study world history because human behavior and financial cycles constantly repeat themselves. They listen to dense, educational podcasts instead of mindless radio shows. Your mind is your ultimate shield against adversity. No matter what disaster happens in the global economy, no matter if the stock market experiences a devastating crash, and no matter how high inflation rises, no government entity or economic force can ever tax, steal, or repossess the specific skills and knowledge you have stored inside your head. If you lose all your money, but possess high-value skills and financial literacy, you can build your wealth back. You can begin cultivating this habit today with extremely small steps. Reclaim your wasted time. Swap just 30 minutes of mindless scrolling on your phone for 30 minutes of reading a highly recommended financial book. If you dedicate yourself to getting just 1% smarter and more capable every single day, the compound effect on your career, your relationships, and your bank account over a full decade will be utterly unrecognizable. Finally, there is an overarching habit that makes all the other principles possible. It is a concept that dictates the trajectory of your entire life. It is the conscious curation of the environment you build around yourself and the specific people you choose to let into your inner circle. Buffett is incredibly vocal and passionate about this specific topic. He has repeatedly stated in front of thousands of people that the single most important decision you will ever make in your entire life has nothing to do with your career path or your investment portfolio. The most critical decision is who you choose to marry. Right behind that choice is who you choose to associate with on a daily basis. There is a long-standing psychological concept stating that you are the exact average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Human beings are deeply social creatures, and we unconsciously absorb the energy, the habits, and the limiting beliefs of the people around us. If you surround yourself with 5 people who constantly complain about the state of the economy, who live paycheck to paycheck so they can buy expensive alcohol on the weekends, and who firmly believe that the entire financial system is rigged against them, it is a mathematical certainty that you will become the 6th person in that group. Their toxic mindset will gradually become your mindset. Their chronic financial anxiety will eventually become your financial anxiety. Conversely, if you make the difficult choice to surround yourself with builders, thinkers, and long-term planners, your entire perception of reality shifts. When you spend time with people who actively discuss new ideas, investment strategies, and personal growth Rather than gossiping about celebrities or complaining about their bosses, you are forced to elevate your own standards to match the energy of the room. Success becomes normalized. Financial discipline becomes the standard expectation rather than a weird quirk. You must begin auditing your social circle today. This does not mean you have to aggressively cut off your oldest childhood friends or distance yourself from your family members. However, it does mean you must be incredibly intentional and protective about where you spend your limited emotional energy. Actively seek out mentors who are already where you want to be in 10 years. Join communities, even if they are purely online forums or local meetup groups, that are strictly focused on financial independence, entrepreneurship, and personal responsibility. Protect your peace and fiercely protect your mindset. Building generational wealth is ultimately a team sport. You are the general manager of your own life, and you need to make absolutely sure you have drafted the right players to be on your side. When you combine intentional spending, a clear circle of competence, the mathematical magic of compound interest, a solid margin of safety, emotional detachment from the market, relentless daily learning, and a high-quality social circle, failure becomes almost impossible. The path is slow, the work is quiet, but the final destination is absolute freedom.